She pretended to lose her job just to see who would stand by her, but what her own family did next changed everything. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Rachel Miller. I'm in my early 30s, and for most of my life, I've been the dependable one. The one who plans ahead, shows up early, and fixes problems before anyone else notices them. I work hard. I always have. But over the years, something quiet started to hurt me. No one in my family really saw me anymore. They only saw what I could do for them. So one evening, I decided to tell them something that wasn't true. I told them I had been laid off from my job. I didn't make it dramatic. I didn't cry or raise my voice. I said it calmly, like it was just another fact of life. Inside, my heart was racing, but my face stayed still. I wanted to watch. I needed to see what would happen when I had nothing to offer. The room felt different right away. My parents stopped smiling. My brother didn't ask if I was okay. There was a pause that felt too long, like everyone was thinking the same thing but didn't want to say it out loud. I sat there quietly, listening to the sounds in the house, noticing how no one reached for me or said my name with concern. I thought someone might ask how I was holding up. I thought there might be a hug, or at least a soft word. Instead, the questions came out sharp and practical. How long would this last? What was I going to do now? Did I have savings, or was this going to become a problem for them? I nodded and answered simply. I told them I was still figuring things out. I kept my voice steady. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain how hard I had worked or how much I had already given. I just watched their faces change, watched the warmth fade into worry that wasn't really about me. As the conversation went on, I realized something painful. No one was afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing what I provided. The support, the help, the quiet safety net I had always been. Sitting there, I felt invisible in a way I never had before. But I also felt clear. Clearer than I had in years. This wasn't a mistake or bad luck. This moment was showing me the truth I had been avoiding. I had spent so long earning my place that I forgot I deserved one without proving anything. I didn't say much more that night. I stood up, thanked them for listening, and went to my room. Behind the closed door, I took a deep breath. I wasn't broken. I wasn't scared. I was finally awake. And whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure. I would never ignore my worth again. For as long as I can remember, I was the one everyone leaned on. It didn't start as a burden. At first, it felt good to be needed. I liked being the responsible one, the person who could fix things when they went wrong. My parents, Tom and Linda Miller, worked hard, but money was always tight. Whenever there was a shortfall, I stepped in without being asked. It started with small things. I covered a utility bill one month. I paid for a repair the next. Over time, it became normal for them to call me when something unexpected came up. I never heard thank you very often, but I told myself that family didn't need reminders. You help because you care. My younger brother Evan needed support too. He was still finding his way, and I understood that. I helped him with rent when he fell behind. I paid for groceries when his fridge was empty. I listened when he complained about life being unfair. I never made him feel small for needing help. I thought that was what being a good sister meant. Slowly, my own needs moved to the background. I skipped trips. I delayed plans. I told myself I could buy things later, that rest could wait. Whenever I thought about saying no, guilt stopped me. I didn't want to be the reason someone else struggled. So I kept giving, even when I felt tired. What hurt the most wasn't the money. It was the way it all became expected. No one asked if I was okay. No one noticed when I looked worn down or stressed. If I hesitated even once, I could feel the disappointment in the room. My value seemed tied to how useful I was. Family gatherings felt less warm over time. Conversations often turned into requests, advice I didn't ask for, or reminders of what I should be doing next. When things went right, it was normal. When something went wrong, I was the first call. I was reliable, but I was also invisible. I told myself this was just how families worked. That love was quiet and unspoken. But deep down, I felt something heavy building inside me. I was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. I was tired of being strong all the time, tired of carrying everyone else's worries while my own were ignored. Still, I kept going. I showed up. I helped. I smiled when I was expected to. I didn't realize then how much of myself I was giving away. I only knew that somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like a daughter or a sister, and started feeling like a resource. After I told them about the job, everything changed faster than I expected. It wasn't loud or dramatic at first. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like you've done something wrong just by existing. My parents didn't ask how my day had been anymore. Their voices became short, careful, like they were measuring every word. My mom stopped calling just to talk. When she did call, it was usually about money or plans that didn't include me. My dad barely looked at me during conversations. He nodded instead of listening. I could feel distance growing, even when we were in the same room. Evan changed too, but in a different way. He started joking. At least, that's what he called it. He laughed about me joining the unemployed club and asked if I was enjoying my time off. The first time, I forced a smile. The second time, it stung. By the third time, I realized it wasn't a joke anymore. Small comments began to pile up. My mom asked if I was still buying name-brand groceries. My dad mentioned how expensive gas had gotten, then glanced at me like I should understand the message. Evan said things like, "Must be nice to sleep in," even though I was still waking up early, still trying to figure out my next steps. No one said anything directly at first, but the respect I once had was gone. I could hear it in their tone, see it in their eyes. I was no longer the dependable one. I was a problem they didn't want to deal with. At dinner, conversations moved around me instead of including me. When I spoke, the room felt tense, like my words were taking up too much space. If I mentioned looking for work, my parents exchanged looks. If I stayed quiet, Evan filled the silence with another comment that made me feel smaller. What hurt most was how normal it all felt to them. They didn't seem aware of the change, or maybe they didn't care. To them, this was just how things worked. If you were useful, you mattered. If you weren't, you were judged. I watched it all closely. I noticed how quickly kindness faded. How concern turned into criticism. How easily they spoke to me in ways they never had before. It was like a mask had slipped, and I was seeing parts of them I hadn't wanted to believe were there. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I listened and remembered every word. Each comment made things clearer. I wasn't imagining it anymore. Losing money, even in their minds, had made me lose value. And that truth settled heavy in my chest, impossible to ignore. The dinner was supposed to be normal. Just another evening at the table, plates passed around, small talk filling the space. I sat down hoping things might feel easier, that maybe the tension would fade. It didn't. The air felt heavy from the moment we started eating. My mom was the first to speak. She sighed and said it was time to be realistic. She talked about responsibility and adulthood, about how life doesn't wait for anyone. Her words were calm, but they landed hard. She said I needed to think about how long I planned to stay in this situation. I looked at her, waiting for something kind to follow. It didn't. My dad joined in. He said he was worried, but his worry sounded more like blame. He talked about how expensive everything was and how they couldn't afford to carry extra weight. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The message was clear. I was becoming a burden. Evan leaned back in his chair like this was all entertainment. He said maybe it was time for me to move out and figure life out on my own. He laughed a little when he said it, like it was helpful advice. No one corrected him. No one told him to stop. I sat there with my hands in my lap, listening. No one asked how I was holding up. No one asked if I was scared or stressed or overwhelmed. They talked about me like I wasn't there, like I was a problem to be solved instead of a person. Each word felt heavier than the last. I felt heat rise in my chest, but I kept my face calm. I didn't want to cry in front of them. I didn't want to give them that. So I stayed quiet and let them talk. They called it tough love. They said they were just being honest. They said this was what I needed to hear. But there was no love in their voices. Only judgment. Only impatience. I looked around the table and realized something painful. If I had been doing well, this dinner would have been full of laughter. If I had been paying bills or helping out, none of this would be happening. Their concern wasn't about me falling. It was about me no longer holding them up. When the meal ended, I helped clear the table like I always did. No one thanked me. No one noticed. I went to my room that night feeling smaller than I ever had in my own home. But I also felt something else, quiet and steady. I was seeing everything clearly now. Every word. Every look. Every silence. And I knew I wouldn't forget any of it. A few days later, I was walking down the hallway when I heard my parents talking in the living room. I wasn't trying to listen. I was just passing by. But then I heard my name, and my steps slowed without me meaning to. My dad said something about the car. The old one I had driven since college. The one I paid insurance for and took care of myself. He said it was just sitting there and that maybe it was time to sell it. My mom agreed. She said I wasn't working anymore, so I didn't really need it. She said the money could be used for more important things. They didn't ask me. They didn't wonder how I would get around. They spoke like the decision was already made. Like the car wasn't mine anymore. Like I didn't deserve it now that I wasn't useful. I stood there, frozen. My chest felt tight, and my hands started to shake. That car wasn't just transportation. It was something I had earned on my own. It was proof that I had built parts of my life myself. Hearing them talk about taking it away so easily hurt more than I expected. Before I could move, Evan walked into the room. He laughed and said, "Why does she even need a car? She's not going anywhere." Then he said it. He called me dead weight. Just like that. No hesitation. No shame. They didn't correct him. No one told him he was wrong. My mom just nodded, like it made sense. That was the moment something inside me went completely still. I finally understood. Their love wasn't about who I was. It was about what I provided. When I helped, I belonged. When I stopped, I became something to cut away. I walked back to my room quietly. I didn't slam doors. I didn't cry out. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. My heart hurt, but my mind was clear. This was what I had been afraid of for a long time, and now it was right in front of me. I thought about confronting them. I imagined asking how they could talk about me like that. But I knew it wouldn't change anything. They would deny it, explain it away, call me sensitive. I didn't want excuses. I wanted truth. So I made a choice. I wouldn't say anything yet. I wouldn't defend myself. I would let them keep talking. Let them keep showing me exactly who they were when they thought I had nothing. That night, I lay in bed listening to the house settle into silence. I felt sad, but not confused anymore. The fear I once had was gone. In its place was something stronger. I was done hoping they would suddenly see me. From now on, I would just watch. And I would remember everything. There was something none of them knew. Something I had kept to myself from the very beginning. I never lost my job. Not only was I still employed, but a few weeks before all this started, I had been promoted. It came with more responsibility, but also a large bonus. It was the kind of moment people celebrate. I didn't tell anyone. I had been planning to share the news at first. I imagined their smiles, the pride in their voices. But before I could, something inside me hesitated. I thought about how often my success turned into expectations. How quickly my good news became their safety net. So I stayed quiet. When I decided to pretend I had been laid off, it wasn't about testing them out of spite. It was about finally facing a truth I had been avoiding. I needed to know if they cared about me without the benefits attached. I needed to see who would stay when I appeared to have nothing. Now I had my answer. Knowing the truth changed how I felt. The hurt didn't disappear, but it settled into something clearer. I wasn't imagining the disrespect. I wasn't being dramatic. I had simply outgrown the role they forced me into. I went about my days calmly. I still woke up early. I still went to work. I smiled during meetings and did my job well. Outside the house, my life was moving forward. Inside, I stayed quiet and watched. I stopped reacting to their comments. When they complained about money, I listened. When they spoke about plans that didn't include me, I nodded. Every word they said confirmed what I already knew. They saw me as a resource, not a person. My pain slowly turned into resolve. I didn't want revenge that hurt them. I didn't want shouting or anger or drama. I wanted the truth to stand on its own. I wanted them to face the consequences of how they treated me. So I started planning quietly. Not with anger, but with intention. I thought about boundaries I had never set. About help I would no longer give. About a future where my worth didn't depend on what I provided. I realized I didn't owe them an explanation yet. I didn't owe them comfort. They had shown me who they were when they thought I was down. Now it was my turn to decide who I would be going forward. For the first time in a long while, I felt steady. I wasn't scared of being alone anymore. I was more afraid of staying invisible. And that fear was finally gone.
I stopped helping after that. Not in a dramatic way. I didn't announce it or explain myself. I simply said no when money was mentioned. When a bill came up, I said I couldn't help. When Evan hinted that he was short on cash, I stayed quiet. The change didn't go unnoticed. My parents reacted almost immediately. My mom's voice turned sharp. She asked what was wrong with me, why I was acting different. My dad said I was being irresponsible and selfish, especially now. He said family was supposed to support each other, as if that rule only applied one way. Evan was worse. He stopped pretending to joke. He called me lazy. He said I was ungrateful for everything our parents had done for me. When I didn't respond, he got louder. He wanted a reaction. I didn't give him one. No one asked how I was feeling. No one asked if I was stressed or afraid. Their concern wasn't about my well-being. It was about what they were losing. I could see it clearly now. The house felt colder. Conversation stopped when I walked in. Doors closed more often. I became a stranger in my own home. And yet, I felt calmer than I expected. Something inside me had shut down, not from weakness, but from acceptance. I realized I had been alone for a long time. I just hadn't admitted it to myself. Being surrounded by people doesn't mean you're supported. Sometimes it just means you're being watched for what you can give. They called me selfish, but I knew the truth. I was finally choosing myself. That choice made them uncomfortable. It took away the version of me they relied on. At night, I sat quietly with my thoughts. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hoping they would change. I was done waiting for kindness that only appeared when I was useful. The accusations kept coming, but they didn't hurt the same way. Each one pushed me further away, emotionally. I stopped explaining. I stopped defending. I listened, learned, and let go. By the end of it, I understood something simple and painful. They had already abandoned me the moment I stopped providing. All I had done was notice. They called for a family meeting one evening. My mom said it was time to talk seriously about my future. The way she said it made it clear this wasn't about concern. It felt like a decision had already been made, and they just wanted me there to hear it. We sat in the living room. My parents on the couch. Evan in his usual chair, arms crossed. I sat across from them, calm and quiet. No one asked how I was feeling. My dad started talking about plans, about timelines, about what I should be doing next. My mom added comments about responsibility and independence. Evan watched, waiting for his turn. I let them finish. I didn't interrupt. When the room finally went quiet, I took a slow breath and spoke. I told them I had something they needed to know. My voice didn't shake. I said I never lost my job. I said I was still working the entire time. I told them about the promotion and the bonus. I didn't say it with pride or anger. I just stated the facts. The room froze. My mom stared at me like she didn't understand the words. My dad opened his mouth, then closed it. Evan laughed at first, like he thought it was a joke. Then he stopped when he saw my face. I told them why I did it. I said I needed to see how they would treat me when they believed I had nothing to give. I said I watched how quickly their respect disappeared. I reminded them of the comments, the jokes, the way they talked about selling my car, the way they called me a burden. No one interrupted me. No one argued. The silence was heavy. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just told the truth. I said the way they treated me hurt, and it showed me something I couldn't ignore anymore. My dad finally spoke, trying to explain. My mom said they were just worried. Evan said everyone was stressed. I listened, but I didn't respond. I had already heard enough. I stood up when I was done. I said I wasn't there to fight. I was there to be honest. Then I walked out of the room. Behind me, no one followed. No one called my name. The silence stayed. And for the first time, it didn't scare me.
After that night, they tried to explain themselves. My mom said they never meant to hurt me. She said stress made people say things they didn't mean. My dad talked about fear and responsibility, about how parents worry when things feel uncertain. Evan said he was just being honest and that everyone was too sensitive these days. I listened to all of it without interrupting. I didn't feel the need to argue. Their words didn't change what I had seen. Explanations didn't erase behavior. When they were done, I spoke calmly. I told them I wasn't angry. I said I was clear. I told them I would no longer give money or cover expenses. I said I wouldn't accept jokes or comments that made me feel small. I told them love that depends on what I provide isn't love I can accept anymore. They didn't like hearing that. My mom looked hurt. My dad grew quiet. Evan rolled his eyes and said I was being dramatic. I didn't respond to that either. I explained my boundaries once. I didn't repeat myself. I didn't ask for permission. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I was protecting myself. I packed a small bag that night. I didn't rush. I folded my clothes carefully and took the things that mattered to me. When I walked past them, no one stopped me. No one apologized in a way that felt real. As I stepped outside, I felt lighter. Not because things were easy, but because I wasn't carrying their expectations anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shaking. I felt steady. That was the moment I understood what real strength felt like. It wasn't loud. It didn't demand attention. It was quiet and firm. I didn't walk away to make a point. I walked away because staying meant losing myself. The revenge they never expected wasn't words or actions. It was my absence. It was my decision to stop being used. And as I drove away, I didn't look back. Sitting alone that night, I finally let myself think about everything that had happened. The truth settled over me slowly, like a quiet weight lifting. I realized that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers or enemies. Sometimes, it comes from the people who are supposed to love you most. From family who believe your care and sacrifice are theirs by default, who think you owe them loyalty simply because you gave once, or twice, or always. Pretending to lose my job had been hard. It hurt to act like I had nothing, to hear the words, the jokes, and the judgments I knew weren't true. But it didn't break me. In fact, it did the opposite. It freed me. It gave me clarity I hadn't had before. I could see exactly who cared about me as a person, and who only cared about what I could give. That knowledge was painful, yes, but it was also empowering. I thought about all the years I had spent bending myself around other people's expectations. All the time I had spent helping, giving, and sacrificing without recognition. All the moments when I had silenced my own needs to make someone else comfortable. I realized that none of that made me weak. It had prepared me to stand firmly when I finally needed to. There was a quiet strength in stepping away without anger. In refusing to fight for validation that would never come. In setting boundaries and leaving space for myself. The house I left behind, the words they said, the disapproval and judgment, they no longer held power over me. I could be free of them without bitterness, without revenge that hurt anyone. My freedom itself was enough. I understood something else too. Worth isn't proven by suffering or endurance. It isn't measured by how much you give or how much you endure in silence. Worth is knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone diminish it. You don't have to collapse, cry, or beg for recognition. You don't need approval from those who only see your usefulness. I also realized love isn't a transaction. When love is conditional, when it depends on what you provide, it isn't love at all. Accepting that truth allowed me to stop pretending, stop hoping, and start living for myself. I could build a life without fear of being used or dismissed. I could trust myself to be my own protector. That night, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was quiet, steady, and certain. The betrayal, the humiliation, the disappointment, they were all lessons. And the biggest lesson was this: you don't need to fall apart to prove your worth. You don't owe loyalty to people who only love what you provide. You owe it to yourself to honor your own value, your own boundaries, and your own life. For the first time, I felt whole. I was free, not because they had changed, but because I finally had. And that freedom was enough.